Thank you, everyone. I will be speaking in French. As Pope the 14th said in the message sent during his meeting with the elderly, he said that the elderly are increasing. That's the symbol of the modern age, something we need to understand at the same time the moment we are living in. The question is, how can we discern it properly? For Ignazio de Loyola, the distinction is between a positive aspect and a negative one. So, providence represents the cure of the Lord during the old age. So, what can we do? And what about the implications? The old age, in the past and in the future, offers a moment of transmission, and it's not a sign of the providence for human beings in different stages of life. Isn't it the providence for the church, which is closer to people, closer to ecclesial communities, to bridge bridges to fulfill the self? However, we need to go beyond this. We need to take a stance and we need to act. A book about the aging says that everyone will age, but the knowledge doesn't have a specific direction. It could be a disruptive one or a creative one, a direction which frees everyone. So, being aware that the Lord will be taking care of the old age means that Lord is with us, showing His force, taking away what's destructive, and enlightening the world and the pathway. So, seizing the opportunity to be creative during the old age. As for resources, I would like to extract some conclusions. During the modern age, during the first encyclical of Pope Leo XIV, Cyclica Humanitas, focused on the projection of human beings in the area of artificial intelligence, and at the same time, we have a conjunction to focus on. A conjunction which is the encyclical, but at the same time, the catechesis, learnings, and teachings of Pope Leo XIV, who used this expression, magisterium of fragility. Meditation is what we should use to find hope, and we are vulnerable. This is crucial for all people rich in compassion. So, first of all, I will try by showing you 5 specific considerations, starting from the meaning of fragility, of old age, like a metaphor used, which is the personification, because when we talk about bridge to the heaven, when we talk about the magisterium of fragility, we use different metaphors. First, fragility. Fragility is the gradual reduction in psychological, cognitive capabilities of the elderly, which is the exposure to what comes from the outside, so diseases, but even obstacles, declining behaviors, some behaviors which represent negative behaviors, for example, maltreatment, violence. This is what Pope Leo XIV talked about. We need to use the term progressive fragility, involving the progressive fragility. So we cannot detach fragility from the force because they are two intertwined concepts which don't divide, but instead they provide essential elements to the human, principles which are not always measurable. That's why they are valuable, especially when it comes to what they produce. So Pope Leo XIV said that the elderly need the vigor of the young, and the power of young needs the wisdom of the elderly to make him stronger. Second, aging. What do we mean by the high aging? The high old age is an advanced stage of the life of a person rooted in the religious language used to evoke wisdom, the fulfillment of a very long standing life. So we have a twofold meaning. We relate to people who are more than 80 years, but on the other hand, we refer to an homeostasis, like a balance, a dynamic of balance, which represents a single situation for all people. So, an opportunity to advance throughout old age. So, we need to understand how to accompany this old age, represented by a progressive fragility. Maybe this requires an opportunity to live together, to share thoughts, to avoid and prevent people from being rejected, because people must understand how to go beyond their limits. So meditation is paramount to understand the compassion which can help to cultivate the acknowledgement of fragility and the possibility to walk through it. The third element is metaphor and personification. With metaphor, we have a symbolic analogy between two elements which are not connected. For example, the bridge and heaven. The bridge connects two dots, and a bridge to the heaven, it's not consistent with physical features of a bridge. So that's a metaphor. So the metaphor of magisterium, of fragility, revoke the idea of magisterium, of teaching, to be represented as an authority. According to the sacred scriptures, we know that people were surprised to see Jesus, and they were there listening to him because he was authoritative. So, what can we learn from fragility? Two elements. the authoritativeness related to fragility and what fragility can teach. The other element is personification, as I said before. So bonds are created through a bridge, bonds between people, so that people can reach the human destination. And if humanity is an abstract feature, here it is represented as it was able to merge its sense of authoritativeness. The third element is what makes us understand how to look at heaven. This freedom enables us to be able to truly look at those elements. Our glance is free. According to Ignacio de Loyola, we have a meditation exercise urging us to see the Trinity, trying to be at the Trinity's side. So it's an image with the Trinity looking towards the earth. It sees children, grandparents, sons and daughters. It sees the elderly, people affected by vulnerabilities, people who are tired to live. And Trinity sees all people who are in relation with other people, experiencing the old age, sad moments, happy moments, lucky people, and complaining one. So we can extract conclusions using our imagination and using our glance towards the Trinity. And the great freedom through which the Trinity looks towards the earth. That's why we are called upon to live. That's how we are called upon to experience the high old age, this stage of life. An old person, she's 90, sent a WhatsApp message on Easter Day saying that he had already arranged her funeral. The reaction of relatives was, are you telling us this thing via WhatsApp? And the first reaction, the first answer was, why on Easter Day? The answer was, it's the perfect day to send this kind of message. The way the intensity of the message is chosen expresses a high level of freedom. It is a mature and free world which lies in faith and in maturity. This is a typical manner used by vulnerable people, used by old people who communicate and interact with the Trinity. But we can stand with people, with free people. And the second important element, which is necessary to connect and to continue to understand the topic of the bridge to the heaven, is the inherent meaning of the world of the heaven and the world of the earth, because transcendence must be taken into account. That's why we need to stand with faith to understand the Word of God. God's manifestations can be understood thanks to the high old age and thanks to the capability of transcending. We can think about the Trinity, the incarnation representing the Trinity, who decides to send his Son on earth to save us. This mechanism creates the bond between heaven and earth. So, Jesus was sent to earth to help us and to free us from our sins, especially when it comes to the elderly. Jesus came for the elderly, for those to be able to get to know themselves, to be more responsible in their personal environment. And we need to take into account in sacred scriptures this alliance between the heaven and the earth. Not only Jesus and the incarnation, but at the same time, the rising of Jesus, which represents a real communication between the Father, the Lord, and the Son. A communication between heaven and earth. Other verses related to the old age are those we can learn from Jesus' experiences. Everything has been done for us and for the elderly. So when it comes to providence, we need to look at this bridge to the heaven, and we need two important approaches. First, sacred scriptures, the social doctrine of the church. So there is a bridge, and this is a very precious metaphor. I would like to focus on the Marie Saint-Frère bridge. Daughters of Maria de Dolori were reached by the municipality and by the municipal authorities of the city. Authorities wanted to give the bridge the name of Pont Saint-Frère. But why? Because this way we could say to faithful that the name of the founder could be used as a name for a place which connected two parts of the city. So they decided to help citizens of that city, to help the elderly to go from life to death. So the bridge was named after her, and that's a very important aspect. And this story reflects on several points. First, if the bridge represents death, it evokes the idea of crossing, because all human beings are finite. But what we should focus on today is the technical aspect, so the structure of bridge, enabling vehicles and people to cross. So from an individual perspective, how should we be prepared for that moment? Should we reject death and should we go far away from that itself? Should we consider death as a part of the process or not? All too often, life gives you the opportunities to reflect when a relative dies or when something happens. So, which should focus on providence as well. However, we have the old age, and we can be in the hands of the Lord, and we await death. So fragility is related to the old people, very old people, turn around looking at the sky. Their greatness represents the heart of Jesus and the choice of the Lord. So, in the hidden mobility, we have a weak breath as a testimony of those surrounding the vulnerables, people suffering. So, the Lord works in a mysterious way to create this bond between his creature and himself. The bridge from the sacred scriptures to the doctrine. So, first and foremost, beyond the example I made before, for example, the bridge in Turkey, we can say that bridge is not used in the Old Testament, in the Acts of the Apostles, or in the Revelation book. That's why we didn't have a word, a Jewish word, to express the idea of a bridge. So, as for the doctrine of church, we need to reach the moment of Pope Francis and Pope Leo XIV to have the image of bridge in the international context. So, metaphor used by Pope Leo XIV to talk about the relation between the community and the elderly is commonly used because bridge creates continuity and creates something and connects two different dots, two different banks of a river, and it creates something which is very important to create a direction for the elderly. This fragility, as Pope Leo XIV said, if we are capable of embracing it, of taking care of it, is a bridge to heaven because everything depends on the way we take into account fragility like a reality which creates good. And this is related to all common factors for all human beings. Pope Leo talked about this fragility, talking about the desert in Morocco, saying that if we lived in a desert, everyone would be fragile, would be vulnerable. So we have a lot in common. Everyone is vulnerable, and this fragility affects even the youngest generation. For example, the Catholic Institute of Toulouse stated that the fragility of the young was a crucial factor, and now we have psychologists to help the young, to listen to them, and to walk them through the academic journey. So we integrated the profound reconciliation, the peace of heart, which comes from the Lord. But if we take care of the young people, are we taking care of the elderly? Someone said that we did a lot for the elderly during the COVID-19 pandemic and maybe we should focus on something else, but actually, Pope Francis, in the first and in the seventh catechesis on the elderly, mentioned the good bridge as an essential principle, the dialogue between young people and the elderly, between grandparents and grandchildren, family members. He talked about a hug. The dialogue becomes a bond. And if peace is a purpose and fragility is the pathway to it, we need to foster our dialogue and our communication before the Lord. The magisterium of fragility. Let's start off with another example. A young person, he's 30, he takes a golden necklace belonging to another woman. He's charged with a felony. He was sad and he decided to meet that woman. The woman accepts. She goes to the jail. The young boy said that he was so upset, he was so sad, he wanted to make up for what he did, and he wanted to buy a new necklace for her. She said that this is not what's supposed to be done. She asked him, you need to take part in the Brussels Marathon and you need to find a solution for this to happen, even if he was in jail. The director of the penitentiary institution granted a permission for the boy, and the boy took part in the marathon. During the marathon, he met the woman and the director of the penitentiary institution, and when he was awarded the medal, he took the medal off and he put the medal around the neck of the woman. But what can we learn from this story? Can we say that providence manifests itself from the unexpected, the encounter between a boy and the old lady? When the boy decides to make up for what he did, can we say that the importance of this concept manifests in the action of the boy? So the promise of the marathon between a pathway of forgiveness, of mutual consideration. The old woman, does she represent the divine spirit offering a new opportunity, a second chance? So the dialogue, which is at the heart of the magisterium of fragility, as Pope Leo XIV said, if constituted of gestures, is crucial. And he said that the importance of this magisterium comes from the fact that nothing is hidden. This magisterium opens up to new decisive horizon for the reform of our very civilization. So the expression related to the elderly and to the old age evokes the vulnerability, the very vulnerability of the old age, and the psychological and physical fragility of the elderly persons becomes a form of teaching. It recalls the value of humility, empathy, and the recognition of human limits. It invites us to rethink our relationship with dependence and to value the experience and life history of older persons. It is a great possibility of transmission. The example also reveals a wider social use of power. The old woman was wounded, and we know that sometimes old women, old people attacked need to leave their houses. That's why Pope Leo XIV describes the culture of waste. And he said that the elderly can be afraid of the abandonment of God by God. So the theological perspective sheds a unique light upon fragility. Fragility designates the human condition marked by finitude, vulnerability, and dependence upon God. It reveals both our weakness and the possibility of openness to divine grace. Pope Leo, during his message on the day consecrated to the elderly, said, each time when the Lord surprises his interlocutors with a saving intervention, precisely there we find the existence of the Lord. So the divine intervention bears the name of blessing and grace. It represents the force of the Lord. That's another bridge. This intervention represents for us the grace and de-aging. It is a moment of grace showing up for all those believing in the sacred scriptures. So we need to protect ourselves just to be able to be surprised. Are we still disposed to allow ourselves to be surprised? So, for all those who are responsible and for all those working in the hands of the Lord, that's the key. Thank you.